What if I told you that the universe itself has a divine justice system, and tonight, you are about to witness its most spectacular and undeniable verdict? Imagine a narcissist, so utterly convinced of their own godlike invincibility, so arrogant in their belief that they could manipulate reality itself, walking blindly and gleefully into the waiting jaws of a federally orchestrated sting operation. They had absolutely no idea that the shadowy figure they believed to be a powerful ally, a hacker for hire who could bend the digital world to their will, was in fact an instrument of divine reckoning, an undercover agent, patiently, prayerfully waiting for the perfect moment to strike. As wads of cash exchanged hands and secrets were carelessly revealed in a torrent of egomaniacal pride, the narcissist's own arrogance became the very chains that would bind them, the very trap that would lead to their cataclysmic downfall. This is not just a story of comeuppance. It is a testament to a universal law. It is the story of how a soul so steeped in darkness, obsessed with dimming your light, was ultimately and completely consumed by a fire of their own making. Stay with me, because what you are about to hear will not only validate every instinct you've ever had, but it will prove to you, beyond any shadow of a doubt, that you are, and have always been, under divine protection. In a breathtaking moment of karmic reckoning, the truth, like a tidal wave, came crashing down upon them with the force of 1,000 suns. They were caught red-handed, their entire, meticulously constructed empire of manipulation and control collapsing into dust under the colossal weight of their own obsessive hatred. The federal agents had played the ultimate game of chess, and the narcissist, who believed they were the grandmaster, never even saw it coming. But what truly tormented them, what gnawed at their soul in the silent, sterile hours of their confinement, was not just the impending legal consequences. It was your remarkable, radiant transformation. They could not stand to witness your glow-up, your peace, your serenity, your profound and unshakable ability to move forward without them. It haunted their every waking moment like an unsolved, maddening mystery. It wounded their fragile, overinflated ego in ways no prison sentence ever could. You had become the one, sacred thing they could never, ever control, and that powerful truth drove them into a desperate, spiraling obsession that would seal their fate. Every independent, joyful move you made, every single step you took beyond the suffocating reach of their influence, felt like a personal, deliberate insult to their fragile, fractured sense of power. It was so much more than mere curiosity. It was a deep, gnawing, spiritual need. They needed to know what you were doing, who you were with, and most importantly of all, they had to know if you were truly thriving without them. The very idea that you could be happy, successful, and at peace in their absence was a poison to their soul, a concept so foreign and offensive to their core programming that it began to unravel them from the inside out. Paranoia, like a slow-creeping, venomous vine, began to grow and twist within the dark recesses of their mind. At first, they tried to rationalize their obsession, dismissing it as harmless curiosity, a normal reaction to a past connection. But deep down, where the truth resides, they knew their fixation was much, much darker. They were coming undone, terrified not so much of losing you, for they never truly had you, but of losing control over how the world, and you, perceived them. They had spent a lifetime building a fragile illusion of power, a carefully curated narrative where they were always in control, always untouchable, always the one to leave, never the one to be left. But when you broke free, when they saw you rising above the ashes of their interference, their entire world began to collapse. The usual tactics in their playbook, the very tools of their dark trade, suddenly became useless. The fake social media accounts they created to stalk you were blocked. The flying monkeys, those weak-willed enablers they dispatched to gather information, came back with nothing. The mutual connections they once relied on to keep tabs on your life suddenly went silent, either out of loyalty to you or fear of being associated with their toxicity. You had methodically and spiritually shut every door and locked every window to your soul. Their access was completely and utterly cut off, and their narcissistic mind simply could not accept this new reality. That is when they crossed a line from which there would be no return. Turning to the dark arts of technology for answers, they began a desperate and reckless quest. They tried to leverage sophisticated spyware, devious social engineering schemes, and even sought out black market hackers in a frantic attempt to infiltrate your sacred privacy. If they could no longer watch you from the outside, they were grimly determined to find a way to get inside your world. Convinced of their own cleverness, they truly believed their schemes were too sophisticated to ever be detected. They operated with an air of smug superiority, using disposable burner devices, encrypted messaging apps, and backdoor surveillance tools that they thought made them invisible. They were trying to digitally recreate the sense of control they had so devastatingly lost in the real world. But in their all-consuming desperation, they only grew more reckless, more frantic, and more sloppy. Their blinding arrogance, their core belief that they were smarter than everyone else, blinded them to the stark and simple reality that their own downfall was not just possible, but mathematically and spiritually inevitable. They thought they were untouchable, believing they could buy their way back into your world without ever facing any consequences. But they failed to see that the walls, both legal and cosmic, were closing in around them with every passing second. Every digital footprint they left, every illegal cryptocurrency transaction they made, and every bold, arrogant move they took was actually drawing them closer and closer to a trap of their very own making. What they perceived as a master plan for reclamation was, in fact, their greatest and most fatal mistake. In their obsession with controlling you, they blindly and stupidly triggered their own spectacular downfall, never once suspecting that federal agents, acting as instruments of a higher justice, were already watching their every move. Their supreme arrogance kept them from ever seeing the truth. They weren't the predator in this story. They were the prey. Long before they ever made contact with their so-called hacker for hire, law enforcement was already on their trail, meticulously documenting every desperate, pathetic step they took. Each failed attempt to worm their way back into your life was nothing more than another breadcrumb, another piece of evidence, leading straight to their own exposure. The hacking attempts were traced and logged. The fraudulent financial transactions were meticulously recorded. The relentless cyberstalking was documented in excruciating, undeniable detail. All the while, they operated under the delusion that they were moving in the shadows, cloaked in digital invisibility. But in reality, they had been standing under a harsh, unforgiving spotlight from the very beginning. Every wicked scheme they hatched, every illegal tool they deployed, left a clear, indelible trail, a digital fingerprint that tied them directly and irrefutably to the crimes they believed were so cleverly hidden. Their paranoia, ironically, made them reckless, and that recklessness made them fatally sloppy. Yet their greatest mistake, the fatal miscalculation that would ultimately seal their doom, came when they thought they had finally found their way back in. Blinded by a desperation that had curdled into madness, they reached out to a hacker, a faceless, anonymous figure lurking in the dark corners of the cybercrime underworld, thinking this individual was their golden ticket, their secret key back into your life. What they didn't realize, what their ego would never allow them to consider, was that this supposed hacker wasn't just another shadowy operator. The person on the other end of that encrypted line was a highly trained undercover agent, patiently and skillfully waiting for them to take the bait. They made it laughably easy for the authorities. They were so eager, so blinded by their obsession, so utterly convinced of their own brilliance, that they never once questioned who they were truly dealing with. Without a second thought, with an air of triumphant authority, they handed over the money. They sent explicit, detailed instructions. They spelled out exactly what they wanted: unfettered access to your life, your private conversations, your entire digital world. Every single word they typed, every arrogant demand they made, was being meticulously recorded. Every single transaction was being logged as Exhibit A in a growing federal case. In that very moment, they set in motion the avalanche of evidence that would bring their entire fraudulent empire crashing down around them. They had already lost the war the moment they thought they were in control. They just didn't know it yet. In their own mind, they were the mastermind, the grand puppeteer pulling all the strings, orchestrating every move from the safety of the shadows. In reality, they had just unknowingly signed their own arrest warrant with a digital flourish. The trap was set. The countdown to their destruction had begun. Soon, the walls would close in, and they would finally, painfully understand that they had never, ever been in control. They weren't just outplayed. They had played themselves into a checkmate of their own design. The instant they transferred that first payment, their fate was sealed. Every keystroke, every whispered instruction over a secure line, every arrogant demand became another nail in their own coffin, undeniable evidence in the hands of the very system they despised. Yet, the authorities didn't swoop in right away. This operation wasn't about a quick, simple arrest. It was about building a case so solid, so ironclad, so meticulously detailed that there would be absolutely no loopholes, no plausible excuses, and no possible way out. One calculated, patient move at a time, the agents masterfully fed the narcissist's illusion of control. They responded just enough to keep them hooked, dangling the shimmering mirage of success right before their desperate eyes. Lost in their sick fantasy of domination and control, the narcissist never once suspected the truth. They thought they were moving in silence, operating completely under the radar, not realizing that the so-called silence was actually the deafening quiet before the storm, the calm before the final, cataclysmic fall. Every move they made, every digital trace they left, every shady transaction, every single communication, everything was being tracked, cataloged, and preserved as evidence. Phone calls were recorded, emails were intercepted, money transfers were flagged and followed through a complex web of digital wallets. Behind the scenes, the mountain of evidence was stacking higher and higher by the day. But still, blinded by an arrogance of biblical proportions, they carried on, convinced the game was still theirs to win. They never questioned how remarkably easy it all seemed, how smoothly they had gained what they foolishly thought was access to your world. Their insatiable need to spy, to control, to possess, had completely clouded their judgment, making them miss all the subtle red flags, the calculatedly delayed responses from the hacker, the careful, non-committal phrasing in their communications, the slight hesitations that were expertly designed to keep them talking, to keep them confessing, to keep them digging their own grave deeper and deeper. And so, driven by a demonic obsession, they kept going, unwittingly writing their own detailed confession with every desperate request, every subsequent payment, and every frantic attempt to get closer to you. The feds didn't have to chase them. They walked willingly and eagerly right into the fire, handing over every single piece of evidence needed to bring their corrupt empire crashing down in flames. They believed they were still the puppeteer, but they had become the marionette in a grand play they never even realized was unfolding around them. Their time was running out, and when the final moment of reckoning arrived, there would be absolutely no escape. Reality didn't hit them all at once in a single, clarifying flash. Instead, it crept in insidiously, slowly tightening around them like a noose. At first, it was just a fleeting flicker of unease, a subtle, cold feeling in the pit of their stomach as they checked their messages and saw no reply from the hacker they thought they had on their payroll. But that small, nagging feeling grew, gnawing at them, festering into full-blown panic. And then, Like a freight train derailing at full speed, the truth slammed into them. They were caught. It was over. No more illusions. No more schemes. No more hiding behind fake accounts and shady, back-alley tricks. Everything they had done, every dark secret they thought was buried forever, was now on full, glaring display. The money transfers, the recorded conversations, the digital footprints, a mountain of evidence that linked them directly and undeniably to their crimes. They had walked right into the waiting hands of the authorities, and now there was nowhere left to run, nowhere left to hide. Some tried to deny it, their voices shaking with a pathetic mixture of panic and indignation, insisting it was all a misunderstanding, a setup. Others tried to run, frantically erasing files, wiping devices, and destroying evidence. But it was far, far too late. The authorities already had everything they needed: cloned hard drives, traced financial transactions, logged keystrokes from months prior. The smartest among them, the ones who could see the checkmate on the board, simply fell silent, stunned and pale as their carefully constructed world fell apart around them. Their reign of deception, built on a foundation of lies and manipulation, had crumbled to dust, exposed for everyone to see. Those who had once laughed in the face of consequences now faced the harsh, unforgiving light of reality. What they had done in darkness was now being made visible for all the world to witness. And the worst part, the part that truly broke them, was that there was no one left to save them. Look, you already know the game is rigged in favor of the light. Quick pause, family of God connection. If this message is resonating deep within your soul, and you feel called to support this sacred work, you can become a partner in our mission. Feel free to buy me a coffee using the link in the description. Your support, no matter the size, keeps this space flowing with truth, light, and divine clarity for those who need it most. And if you're standing with me, drop the number 88 in the comments below as a sign of our unity. Now let's keep going. They foolishly believed they were orchestrating a grand game of control, moving the pieces on the board with confidence and arrogance, thinking they held all the power. But what they never understood, what they were spiritually incapable of grasping, was that the real game was never in their hands. It was in yours all along. From the very moment they made the conscious, malicious choice to spy on you, to hack your privacy, to manipulate your life, they unknowingly set themselves on a path to their own destruction. The universe has a perfect and infallible way of restoring balance, and it simply does not tolerate injustice forever. Every single ounce of negative energy they expended trying to break you only circled back and, with cosmic precision, broke them instead. They walked through life cloaked in an air of invincibility, genuinely convinced that they were immune to the consequences that govern mere mortals. For years, they had managed to dodge accountability, weaving a web of lies so intricate and convincing that even they started to believe in their own fiction. But they made one crucial, fatal miscalculation. They underestimated you. They underestimated your strength, your spirit, your unwavering resilience, and your divine refusal to play their demonic games. Your very existence became their undoing. You were never just a target in their game. You were the key to exposing everything they tried so desperately to keep hidden. You were the final domino that would bring their whole corrupt scheme crashing down. With every pathetic attempt to infiltrate your world, they actually stepped closer to their own demise. The more desperately they tried to regain control over you, the deeper they sank into the inescapable trap they had constructed for themselves. Their obsession with destroying you became the very force that ended up destroying them. It wasn't just the federal authorities watching and gathering evidence against them. It was something even greater, unseen but always present. The universe itself, God's perfect system of justice, was ensuring that the scales would be balanced. They played dirty, using lies and manipulation as their weapons, but the universe always plays fair. Everything they plotted against you, every whispered threat, every secret scheme carried out behind closed doors. All of it returned to them, magnified tenfold. The lies they spread about you became the truths told about them. The traps they set for you became the cages that now imprison them. The chaos they tried to unleash in your life only became the whirlwind that consumed their own. For so long, they felt untouchable, moving through life like vengeful shadows, stirring up chaos and then slipping away unnoticed. But this time, they made the fatal mistake of targeting the wrong person. They targeted a child of God, a chosen one. Your light was simply too strong for their darkness to dim, and in their relentless, futile attempts to overpower you, they ended up completely destroying themselves. They thought they could rewrite reality, twist the narrative, and manipulate events to suit their selfish desires. But the truth is an unchangeable, eternal force. And when the scales of divine justice finally tipped, there was absolutely nothing they could do to stop it. No amount of last-minute manipulation, no desperate power play, and certainly no pathetic lie could save them from their fate. They spent their lives preying on the kindness and empathy of others, convinced they were above the spiritual and moral rules that govern this world. But in the end, they were nothing more than pawns in their own pathetic game of self-destruction. Now, the tables have turned completely. They are the ones under scrutiny, living every moment with a constant, gnawing sense of dread and paranoia. Every phone call, every knock at the door, every unexpected message sends a jolt of pure fear through their body, because they know, deep in their bones, that karma is still collecting its debt. The paranoia that once consumed them as they obsessed over you has now turned inward, a cancer eating away at their soul. They are haunted by the very consequences they once thought they could outrun. The truth is, the chosen ones, people like you, never needed to fight this battle directly. The victory was already yours before the first move was even made. The universe had already tipped the scales in favor of divine justice. There is no reversing what has been set in motion. The battle is over, and the outcome is unchangeable. Now, they are the ones left in fear, living with the terrifying reality they created for themselves. There is no erasing, no undoing, and no hiding from what has been revealed. For a narcissist, power is never just about having control over others. It's about crafting the perfect, impenetrable illusion. Their entire identity, their very sense of self, revolves around perception. They must convince the world that they are infallible, always ahead of the curve, and impossible to touch. Their reputation is more than just a name. It is a fortress they build around themselves, brick by brick, lie by lie, delusion by delusion. They masterfully stage their public image, making sure that every glance, every word, every social media post projects an aura of dominance, mastery, and superiority. For years, this intricate web of deception worked flawlessly for them. They moved through life, believing that as long as the world saw them as invincible, they truly were. But now, everything has unraveled. Their carefully constructed image has been shattered beyond any hope of repair. The first signs of their public downfall were almost invisible. A few raised eyebrows in a business meeting, a handful of awkward silences when they entered a room, some whispered conversations just out of earshot. But then, like gasoline thrown onto a spark, the truth began to spread uncontrollably. The name that once sparked fear, awe, or respect now became a synonym for disgrace and scandal. Those who once stood loyally in their shadow, who benefited from their power or sang their praises, now scrambled to distance themselves. Friends and so-called allies deleted old photos, erased text messages, and cut all visible ties. "I barely knew them," they now insist. "We were never that close." The very people who once celebrated them now pretend they never existed at all. This complete social collapse is devastating for a narcissist because, for them, public perception is everything. Legal consequences are bad, but social exile is a far deeper, more agonizing wound. Every connection they once relied on evaporates into thin air. The invitations to exclusive events disappear. Their phone goes silent for days on end. Business partners back out of lucrative deals without so much as a warning. Opportunities that once flowed freely now dry up completely. Their name, which was once a golden ticket to any room, becomes a liability, a red flag, a warning sign for anyone who comes across it. Colleagues, friends, even their own family members recoil in embarrassment and shame. No one wants to be associated with a sinking ship. Doors that once flew open at their approach are now locked and bolted tight. And the world they so carefully built through decades of manipulation and charm crumbles into dust at their feet. Meanwhile, the public spectacle intensifies. News travels at the speed of light in our digital age. Social media turns into a brutal battleground of speculation, revelation, and outright condemnation. Screenshots of their private, manipulative messages are posted. Voice recordings of their tirades are leaked. Every dirty secret, every backroom deal, every cruel and manipulative message is suddenly available for the entire world to see. The internet, the very tool the narcissist once used to control narratives and manipulate people, has turned against them with a vengeance, becoming the very thing that exposes and destroys them. And the worst part for them is that they are utterly powerless to stop it. The more they deny the accusations, the more they try to twist the truth, the more they play the victim, the worse it gets. No one is buying their story anymore. The very people they once bullied, gaslight, or tormented are now watching this public downfall with a quiet, deeply satisfying sense of divine justice. Even those who never dared to stand up to them before now openly celebrate their collapse online and in private. And the humiliation doesn't stop at the public level. Their private world falls apart, too. Family members grow cold and distant, ashamed to even share a last name. Their inner circle, the loyal confidants and enablers who prop them up, vanish one by one, unwilling to go down with the ship. It's not just a damaged reputation. It's total and complete social obliteration. They can't rebuild. They can't silence the relentless, echoing truth of the internet. They can't bribe or manipulate their way out of the search results, out of the screenshots, out of the memories of those they have hurt. They used to thrive on attention, on admiration, on the illusion of being feared or loved. But now, every glance they receive is laced with disgust, and every whisper they overhear is about their shame. No matter where they go, no matter how much they try to run, that permanent stain of exposure follows them. They have become a cautionary tale, living proof that no illusion can last forever. Their worst nightmare has come to life. They are irrelevant, they are exposed, and nothing they can do will ever restore their former power. And yet, even in the midst of this cataclysmic downfall, their obsession with control hasn't faded. If anything, it has grown more desperate, more pathetic. The more their empire collapses, the more frantic they become. Paranoia gnaws at them day and night, refusing to let go. They still scheme from the shadows, convinced that if they just try hard enough, they can claw back some small piece of what they've lost. They create new fake profiles, deploy cheap spyware, and attempt to hack into your life, believing there must be some crack in your spiritual armor they can exploit. Each time, they are certain that this will be the moment they finally regain control. But every single attempt leads only to another dead end, another humiliating failure. They simply cannot understand why their old tricks don't work anymore. It doesn't make sense to their linear, ego-driven mind. How can every move they make backfire so spectacularly? How can every plot fall apart before it even begins? They don't realize that what they are up against isn't just your strength or new technology. It is something far greater, a spiritual law. Every time they try to spy, to manipulate, to regain their hold over you, an invisible force of divine protection blocks their way. The negative energy they are putting out is finally coming back to them, multiplied. They wanted to be the puppet master, pulling strings from the shadows. But now they find themselves a helpless puppet in a story they can't control. Their own paranoia has become their cage, trapping them in a desolate world of shadows and imagined threats. They are haunted by the very ghosts they created, seeing danger in every message, betrayal in every silence, and retribution in every unanswered phone call. Now, they are the hunted. The hacker they once trusted is gone, and every digital move they make is being monitored, flagged, or intercepted by forces they cannot see. They live in a constant state of high anxiety, flinching at every phone call, every knock at the door, every new email or notification. The isolation they once imposed on others is now their own daily reality. The paranoia that once drove their obsession with you is now eating them alive from the inside out, forcing them to relive the same fear and the same uncertainty that they once inflicted on others. And you? You are untouchable. You are divinely protected. They have thrown everything at you. Fake accounts, hidden spyware, relentless attempts to break through your defenses, and every single attempt has failed. The same tricks that once gave them a sense of power now only expose their pathetic desperation. The balance of power has shifted completely and irrevocably. What they don't realize is that this isn't just about the failure of their tactics. It's about the universe making things right. Their downfall is not only a result of your incredible strength and resilience, but also the universe's divine way of restoring justice. They are left grasping at the tattered remnants of their former life, haunted by memories of power and prestige that now mean absolutely nothing. The community that once admired them now avoids them. The family that once stood by them now shuns them. The fear they used to command has curdled into ridicule. All that remains is the stark, naked reality of their own exposure, a fate from which they can never recover, no matter how much they scheme or hide. And so, they will continue chasing ghosts, searching for a way to erase what can never be undone as the world moves on without them. They can't find the person they once believed was their greatest ally. No matter how hard they search, no matter how many resources they burn through or old schemes they try to revive, the so-called fixer, the shadowy operator who once promised them unfettered access, has completely and utterly disappeared. Like a phantom slipping into another realm, their would-be savior left no trace, no clue, no thread to follow. Every digital breadcrumb turns to dust in their hands. Every secret channel they once used is now shut and silent. The labyrinth they once navigated with such confidence is now a maze with every exit permanently sealed. The more desperately they dig, the more lost and frantic they become. Their world is shrinking. Their opportunities are drying up. The connections that were once so reliable have turned cold and distant. Each pathetic attempt to reclaim their old power only reveals how truly powerless they have become. It's as if the universe itself has thrown up invisible, impenetrable barricades, closing every back door, burning every bridge, and standing as a silent, divine sentinel between you and any attempt they make to reach you. They feel this invisible resistance everywhere they turn, a cosmic force that blocks every effort and reminds them, again and again, that the world has changed and their dark reign is over. As a final act of support for our growing community at God Connection, I want to invite you to join us in this mission. If you feel led, please consider a donation of $10 using the Super Thanks button just below this video. Your generosity isn't just a contribution. It's an act of partnership that helps us spread this light and truth to countless others who are in need of this message. Please also make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss these divine downloads. They simply cannot comprehend why their usual tactics are failing so utterly. It baffles them and eats away at their mind, because the power and access they once took for granted have vanished, as if someone flipped a switch and left them permanently in the dark. But you see the truth as clear as day. You know why they're grasping, desperate maneuvers yield nothing but frustration. You have left their world behind completely. You have stepped out of their twisted games, broken free from the chains of their manipulation, and dissolved the energetic cords that used to tie you to their drama and obsession. Their chaos, their hunger for control, their relentless pursuit. It all means absolutely nothing to you now. You have elevated yourself to a spiritual plane they simply cannot access. Their tricks and traps, once so effective, now dissolve into nothingness before they can even reach you. You are shielded by a force they can't understand or penetrate. There is a spiritual armor around you, forged in the fires of your trials, that renders you untouched and untouchable. You are no longer vulnerable to their games. You are walking in peace and clarity on a path of divine alignment and truth. As you move forward, unfazed and undisturbed, they become the ones living under a microscope. The roles have reversed in a way they could have never imagined. Now, it's their devices being tracked, their online accounts being monitored, their every step under surveillance. Not by your doing, but by the law and the universal forces they always thought they could outsmart. The very agencies they once mocked for their slowness or incompetence are now 2 steps ahead, watching them unravel in real time. The justice system they believed they could play like a game has outplayed them, flipping the script in the most spectacular fashion. The darkness in which they once thrived has evaporated, replaced by relentless exposure under the bright, unforgiving light of truth. And the more they struggle, the worse their situation becomes. Every desperate move, every panicked attempt to restore control, only sinks them deeper into a pit of their own making. They're trapped in a losing game, a game where the more effort they expend, the faster they unravel. Each frantic act is just another knot in the rope that binds them. Meanwhile, you don't even need to respond. You don't need to fight back, retaliate, or even speak their name. The battle is being waged on a higher plane, far beyond the reach of ego and control. This isn't just about hacking or spying anymore. It is spiritual warfare, a battle of intentions, of energy, of karma, and of divine justice playing out in perfect, undeniable order. They believed for so long that they operated in total secrecy, that the shadows would always protect them. In their arrogance, they imagined that no matter how dirty their moves, the consequences would never touch them. But the universe is ancient, patient, and unfailingly precise. The memory of the universe is long, and its sense of balance is unbreakable. When your heart is pure and your actions are aligned with higher truth, no amount of deception can penetrate your shield. No enemy, no matter how skilled or vicious, can harm you when you are wrapped in divine protection. They thought they could rob you of your peace, invade your privacy, and shatter your sense of security. They plotted and schemed, convinced that rules didn't apply to them. But every malicious action they took against you is actually a thread they wove into the web of their own destruction. The cosmic scales do not tip for narcissists. They tip only for truth and justice. With each calculated attempt to undermine you, they were only adding another weight to their own downfall. The reality is, they were never fighting you. They were fighting the greater forces that govern this universe, forces no human can ever manipulate or outsmart. Now, that energy has come full circle. Karma has arrived in the form of unstoppable, unmistakable justice. All their efforts to play God have exploded in their faces. It is no longer you standing on trial, but them, not just in courts of law, but in the eternal court of spiritual order. Every lie, every manipulation, every cruel intention is now exposed for the world and for themselves to see. The masks have fallen away, and what remains is the raw, unvarnished truth of who they really are. They used to crave absolute control over you, but now it is they who are being controlled by the consequences of their choices, by the inescapable laws of karma, by the darkness they once wielded so easily. And you are free. You don't have to fight, justify yourself, or seek revenge. The universe has already written the final chapter of this story in your favor. Their punishment isn't limited to legal ramifications or public disgrace. The real suffering comes from the agonizing awareness that they set this all in motion themselves. Every ounce of energy they poured into harming you has come back to devour them, magnified by the force of the universe itself. You are always protected, always guided by a higher hand. While they wasted their strength trying to break you, you rose higher, untouched, unbothered, unshaken. You stand tall now, rooted in your own power, watching as the very energies they tried to manipulate drag them into the consequences they can never escape. This is divine justice. This is balance at last being restored. And what's unfolding now is only the beginning. Their fall will continue, their illusions will keep dissolving, and their attempts to find a way back will only tighten the net around them. So you can sit back, breathe deeply, and let the universe finish what it so wisely started. The battle has already ended, and you have already won. That's all for today. Dear Father, I pray for the growth of my faith. Help me to trust you, even when physical evidence is lacking. Let me believe in your perpetual presence, knowing you will never harm me. I understand that your thoughts for me are thoughts of prosperity and not of harm, to give me a good future. Thank you, gracious and eternal Father, for always listening to my voice. I offer up this prayer to you in the name of Jesus. Amen. Thank you, Jesus, for your love and provision. I am grateful for your presence in my life and the abundance you bring. If this video resonated with you, please like, subscribe to the God Connection channel, and share it with those who need to hear this message. Leave a comment below about your journey and how you are embracing your own triumphant return. If you'd like to support our work, please consider contributing through the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description. No gift is too small. Whether it's a penny, a prayer, or a share, your generosity helps spread God's word and brings hope to others. Don't stop here. Watch our next video for powerful revelations about the signs that reveal you are the chosen one. We've enjoyed following this spiritual journey with you. Thank you for staying with us until the end. Keep shining brightly and embrace your destiny with courage. See you next time. Blessings to all the beautiful souls from the enlightened wisdom of God Connection.